Welcome to the lecture series of Public Theology.
I realized the importance of giving expression to the Christian faith in a language that not only speaks to the church, but also to the wider public, taking into consideration the challenges that are faced by Christians in a society.
What is this affinity between white evangelicals and right-wing populism about? Doctrine alone won't suffice as an answer. After all, evangelicals of color and evangelicals in other countries share much doctrine with white American evangelicals, but come to quite different political positions.
So church leaders, mostly when they are talking about public theology, they feel the engagement of the church, of church leaders and other religious organizations, be they Christians or otherwise, policy formations, critique of bad policies, issues of moral regeneration, and then the issue of economic recovery and the plight of the poor, especially those in IDP camps.
One of the most controversial issues of public theology in Germany in the last years has been the church's stand on search and rescue missions for refugees in the Mediterranean. The church's involvement in search and rescue operations is a concrete case of practiced public theology, which is certainly worth to be analyzed and controversially discussed.
That the public theologian is living in the world as it is, but is called to imagine the world as to be otherwise, thus helping people to see beyond their current circumstances, marred by the effects of violence and injustice.
One could, for example, claim that public theology is theology that matters, theology that makes a difference in the ways in which people live in their communities, societies, our global world together.
Muslims are required both to engage with the world and change it. The Quran repeatedly asks Muslims both to change themselves and to constantly strive to change the world so that it could become a more just, equitable and peaceful abode for humanity.
Why must we not lose sight of black theology of liberation, even though we are having a conversation about public theology?
My research interests are public theology, theological hermeneutics, and digital theology, and I'm glad to introduce you today into the relation of the digital spaces, and public theology.
Giving a perspective into peacemaking from my own experience as a Palestinian who has been living in this land for all my life. And inspired not just by my faith, but also from my activism related to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict.
I teach feminist ethics and public theology because discrimination and violence against women and girls is widespread. Moreover, theology has taught complementarianism and the submission of women, and public theology needs to challenge this.
Our faith is not a private faith. Our faith is a public faith. So it needs to engage the public. It needs to be taken to the public sphere. We need to begin to see how we can collapse the sacred circular divide that causes us to watch evil being perpetuated without doing anything.
So most of the time in a society, especially during some kind of political crisis, people are always asking where the church is, where God is.
And I soon realized that that's not only issue of conflict and peace building, but I think it's in many ways most aspect of our life. When you talk about the common good, the overcoming polarization in our political life, economic life, and social life.
So the question of what it means to be at home, what it means to be a migrant, what it means to experience racism, what it means to be welcomed into a host church and to belong in a host church as an equal. And as I began to explore these questions, the public dimensions of these questions became more and more clear.
And some said, no, we can go back and do our real business and just be church. Nelson Mandela is liberated, so leave the political terrain to the politicians, and we soon discovered, oh no, that's not the gospel imperative. We need to be present, and the notion of public theology encourages us to go spread not the virus, but spread the gospel to all publics of life.